Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The Kreshka blade missed Adrian Voss's throat by millimeters, its green edge slicing air where flesh should have been. Hanika of the Vera clans crashed into the muddy jungle floor, momentum carrying her forward as her prey, impossibly, twisted away at the last moment. Blood sprayed across Hanika's crimson face, not the humans, but her own. In the chaos of the failed strike, he had somehow driven a jagged stone into her shoulder, piercing scaled skin that had never before been breached during a hunt. 14 ceremonial scars marked her shoulders, 14 clean kills, 14 steps toward immortality in the legends of her people. The 15th should have been simple: a wounded human soldier abandoned in the outer jungles of Garak. No armor, no supplies, a leg already torn open by the jungle's merciless thorns. He should have been dead within the hour. Yet as Hanika rolled to her feet, the Kreshka still clutched in her taloned fingers, she found herself facing not a terrified prey begging for mercy, but a soldier with eyes like burning coals. Blood leaked from his reopened leg wound, his military uniform hung in tatters, and his skin glistened with fever sweat. But his stance was that of a predator, not prey. "You're not the first thing I've lost blood to today," he said, his voice rough from thirst but eerily calm. The translator device at his belt flickered, converting his alien words. Hanika's eyes narrowed, yellow irises constricting to slits. None of her previous marks had spoken before the kill. None had dodged the Kreshka when it was already in motion. None had drawn her blood. "How?" she demanded, the word hissing between filed teeth. The human, Sergeant Adrian Voss, according to the markings on his tattered uniform, smiled. A grimace of pain. Yes, but something else lurked beneath it. Something that tugged at Hanika's consciousness. An unfamiliar sensation that she quickly suppressed. "Combat instinct," he said, edging backward toward the dense undergrowth. "When you've survived 3 planetary campaigns, you develop a sense for death coming." Hanika lunged again, the ceremonial blade arcing toward his exposed throat. But again, impossibly, he moved. This time, as she recovered, his fist connected with the wound he'd created, sending white-hot pain lancing through her shoulder. She snarled, slashing wildly, but cut only air and vines. Then the human did the unthinkable. Instead of running, he attacked. A headbutt delivered with desperate force caught Hanika directly between her eyes. Stars exploded in her vision, the world tilting as she staggered backward. By the time her sight cleared, Adrian was gone, leaving only trampled vegetation and a trail of blood that seemed to lead in 3 different directions. Hanika stood frozen, the Kreshka trembling in her grasp. Blood, her blood, dripped from her shoulder onto the jungle floor. The sacred hunt, the 15th trial that would elevate her to clan mother and immortality and legend, had just become something unprecedented. She touched the wound, feeling its depth with a growing sense of disbelief. 14 perfect kills, 14 flawless executions. And now this, a human who fought back, who drew blood, who escaped. 2 questions burned in her mind as she lifted her face to the canopy, tracking the faint disturbance in the leaves where he might have passed. Why had he survived when the killing stroke was perfect? And why, when she had him at her mercy for that fraction of a second, when she could have driven the blade home despite his resistance, had she hesitated? Hanika touched her forehead where a bruise was already forming. Instead of anger, a strange sensation stirred within her, something like respect. Or perhaps it was simply the thrill of a hunt that might, for the first time, present a genuine challenge. She slipped the Kreshka back into its sheath. There would be time for the killing blow. First, there would be the chase. For 3 days, Hanika tracked the human through Garak's most treacherous regions. The jungle itself became the 3rd participant in their dance, its moods and rhythms dictating their engagement. On the first day, she followed him to the edge of the breathing marshes, where the ground inhaled spores that shimmered in filtered sunlight. There she saved him from a Shralgath, a massive amphibious predator that had cornered him against venomous vines. "Why?" he asked when they were safe, his cuts from the escape still fresh. "Your death belongs to me, not to the marsh," she replied. The second day led them through the Krillith maze, vegetation that shifted in response to motion and fear. He watched, learned, and adapted to her fluid movements that parted the living labyrinth. "The jungle knows you," he observed. You're part of it. By the third day, Hanukkah was no longer hunting, but studying. His snares caught native rodents. He found clean water where most off-worlders would have poisoned themselves. When she discovered him collapsed beside toxic Navara blooms, their spores paralyzing his lungs, she treated him with Silith bark rather than letting the jungle claim him. With each encounter, with each choice to preserve rather than destroy, something shifted within her, a question taking root where certainty had once grown. On the evening of the third day, she set her own trap, a classic snare designed to catch his ankle as he followed what appeared to be an easy path through the dense vegetation. She waited in the branches above, the Kreshka ready, anticipating the moment when he would be suspended helplessly, ripe for the killing strike. Hours passed. Night fell. The twin moons of Garak rose, bathing the jungle in pale blue light. When she finally descended to check the trap, she found it sprung, but empty, and beside it, arranged on a broad leaf, was a portion of cooked meat from one of the rodent creatures. Food. He had left her food. Beside it, scratched into the dirt with a sharp stick, was a crude representation of her ceremonial markings, followed by a simple question mark. Hanukkah stared at it for a long time, the Kreshka heavy at her side. The following day, she found more messages, places where he had clearly rested, but left signs not of fear or desperation, but of curiosity. Once she found the symbol for her clan, the crescent blade drawn in the dirt, with strange human characters beneath it. Another time he had arranged stones in a pattern that mimicked the ceremonial scars on her shoulders, 14 in total, with a question mark beside them. He was watching her as she hunted him, learning her as she learned him. On the fifth day, she found him by a stream, attempting to clean his wound. It had become infected despite his efforts, the flesh around it angry and swollen. He looked up as she emerged from the underbrush, her dagger drawn. But instead of fleeing or fighting, he simply nodded, as if greeting an expected visitor. I was wondering when you'd stop circling and make your move, he said, his voice stronger than before. He had rigged the translator to a small solar panel salvaged from his equipment. Nice blade. Ceremonial? Hanukkah did not respond. The language of the hunt did not include conversation, yet she found herself studying him with new eyes. His beard had begun to grow, darkening his jaw. His eyes were clearer than before, fevered perhaps, but alert, intelligent. She raised the Kreshka. He smiled tiredly. Not much of a talker. Fair enough. He gestured to his wounded leg. Might as well finish it. Infection will probably get me anyway. Hanukkah stepped closer, the blade gleaming in the dappled sunlight that filtered through the canopy. One swift stroke, the 15th kill, immortality and legend. But as she raised the dagger, a piercing screech split the air, the unmistakable cry of a Veshrek, a crawler beast known for its deadly venom and lightning-fast strikes. Before she could react, a blur of mottled scales and fangs lunged from the underbrush, not at the wounded human, but at her. The Veshrek had sensed her raised arm as an attack posture and responded to the perceived threat. Pain exploded in her calf as the creature's fangs sank deep, delivering a toxin capable of paralyzing a full-grown Verak within minutes. Hanukkah slashed downward with the Kreshka, catching the beast across its armored back. But the damage was done. Already she could feel the burning spread of venom in her veins. She staggered, the world tilting around her. The Veshrek, wounded but still dangerous, coiled for another strike. It never came. With a shout, the human lunged forward, driving a sharpened stick through the creature's eye with such force that it pinned the beast to the soft earth. The Veshrek thrashed briefly, then went still. Hanukkah fell to her knees, the Kreshka slipping from suddenly numb fingers. The venom was fast, faster than she had been taught. Her vision blurred, darkness creeping in from the edges. The last thing she saw was the human, her prey, her 15th kill, crawling toward her, concern etched on his alien face. Pain returned before consciousness, burning, throbbing agony that radiated from her calf throughout her body. Hanukkah's eyes snapped open to find a night sky visible through a gap in the canopy, the twin moons of Garak hanging like watching eyes. She tried to move, but her limbs felt leaden, unresponsive. Easy, came a voice from nearby. The poison's still working its way out. Turning her head with effort, she saw the human, Adrian, sitting beside a small fire. Her leg had been bound with strips of cloth, a poultice of crushed leaves packed around the wound. The bitter scent of kala root filled her nostrils, an antitoxin that grew near the water's edge. How had he known? Around them, the jungle pulsed with nocturnal life. Bioluminescent insects traced glowing paths through the darkness. The massive leaves of the shulva plants folded inward for the night, their edges emitting a soft humming as they contracted. Nearby, a grove of sensitive kirik trees had curved protectively around their small clearing, their flexible trunks bending to form a natural barricade against the night predators that stalked the deeper jungle. The vegetation had responded to their presence, not with hostility, but with a wary acceptance that puzzled Hanukkah. The jungle of Garak rarely showed such deference to any creature, even the Varak who had evolved within its boundaries. Yet here it was, creating a sanctuary around a Varak huntress and a human stranger. "The jungle shelters us," she murmured, half delirious from the lingering venom. Adrian glanced up at the curved trees, the pulsing glow of protective fungi that had begun to illuminate the perimeter of their sanctuary. "I noticed that. It's been happening since I carried you here. At first I thought these plants were trying to trap us, but then it felt like they were guarding us instead." He prodded the fire with a stick, sending sparks drifting upward only to be gently redirected by the canopy above, preventing any from escaping to ignite the larger jungle. It's as if the jungle itself is watching, evaluating. A shiver ran through Hanukkah that had nothing to do with the venom. The oldest Varak legends spoke of Garak as a conscious entity, not simply an ecosystem, but a vast, interconnected intelligence that tested those who dwelled within it. Most considered these tales symbolic, metaphorical. But in this moment, with the vegetation responding so deliberately to their presence, those ancient stories felt uncomfortably literal. "You understand our plants," she said, her voice rough, the human words awkward on her tongue. Basic translator training had been part of her preparation for the hunt, but she had never expected to use it. Adrian looked up, surprise evident on his face. "She speaks, and here I thought we were going to communicate entirely through attempted murder and life-saving." Despite herself, despite the pain and confusion, Hanika felt her lips twitch in what might have become a smile if she hadn't suppressed it. "Why?" she asked, gesturing weakly at her bound leg. Adrian poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling upward. "Why didn't I let you die, you mean? After you've been trying to kill me for days?" He shrugged. "Good question." He fell silent, and for a time there was only the crackling of the fire and the constant chorus of night insects. "I've seen enough death," he finally said, his voice soft. "Caused enough of it. Doesn't matter what planet I'm on, what species I'm fighting. It all feels the same after a while." Hanukkah studied him in the flickering light, seeing the lines etched around his eyes, the weight of unseen scars. "The Kreshka," she said, looking around for her ceremonial dagger. "Where is it?" Adrian reached behind him and produced the blade, its green edge catching the firelight. "This? Beautiful craftsmanship. I've never seen metal quite this color." "It is not metal," Hanika said. "It is Vrakesh, the hardened blood of the jungle itself." "Poetic," Adrian said, turning the blade. Then to her astonishment, he reversed his grip and offered it to her, hilt first. "Here, if you still want to use it." Hanika stared at the offered weapon, confusion washing through her. "You save me, then give me the means to kill you?" Adrian's eyes held hers, something unreadable in their depths. "I figure if you're still determined to kill me after I dragged you a mile through the jungle, cauterized your wound, and sat up all night making sure you didn't die of fever, well, maybe I deserve it." Hanika did not take the blade. After a moment, Adrian set it on the ground between them, a bridge and a barrier all at once. "Why do you hunt me?" he asked, the question direct, his eyes never leaving hers. The fever made her thoughts slow, her usual certainty wavering. "It is the way, the trials. 14 kills I have made. You would be the 15th, the final mark before I become clan mother." "You kill because tradition tells you to," Adrian said. It wasn't a question. "For honor," Hanika corrected, an edge entering her voice. "For my people." Adrian nodded slowly. "I understand duty, but tell me, does your honor require the kill to come when your prey is at full strength? Or would it count if you slit the throat of someone who saved your life while you were unconscious?" The question struck at something fundamental something Hanika had never questioned in all her years of training. The trials had rules, protocols, traditions stretching back countless generations, but none addressed this specific situation. "The honor is in the hunt," she said finally, "in the test of skill against worthy prey." "And have I proven worthy?" Adrian asked, his tone suggesting genuine curiosity rather than fear or manipulation. Hanika's eyes drifted to the dead Veshrak at the edge of their small camp, its scaled body already beginning to stiffen in death. "You killed a crawler beast with a stick. You found Kala root without being taught. You survived when all others would have perished." She met his gaze. "Yes, you are worthy prey." A strange expression crossed Adrian's face, something like disappointment. "Still just prey then." The night deepened around them, and eventually exhaustion pulled Hanika back into uneasy sleep. Her last waking thought was the realization that with the Kreshka lying between them, she had given her prey the means to end her instead. When she woke at dawn, Adrian was asleep nearby, his breathing labored from his own infection. The Kreshka was in his hand, but her throat remained uncut. Days passed in a strange limbo as both hunter and hunted recovered from their wounds. The infection in Adrian's legs slowly retreated under the application of medicinal paste that Hanika showed him how to prepare. The venom worked its way out of her system, leaving her weakened but alive. Each night, as they sheltered within the protective embrace of the Kirik trees, the Kreshka lay between them, its green blade reflecting the bioluminescent glow of the jungle night. Hanika often found her eyes drawn to it, the ceremonial dagger that had claimed 14 lives with perfect efficiency. Each kill was commemorated by a small etching on the hilt, 14 marks for 14 victories. The empty space for the 15th seemed to accuse her each time she looked at it. Adrian noticed her gaze one evening. "That blade means a lot to you," he observed. "It is more than a weapon," Hanika replied, her taloned fingers hovering above it without touching. "The Kreshka is bestowed upon those who begin the trials. It remains with us until we complete the 15th kill. Then it is retired to the Temple of Ancestors, a testament to our journey." "So you've used that exact knife for all 14 kills?" She nodded. "Its edge never dulls. The Vrakesh, the material it's forged from, is alive in its own way. It drinks blood, grows stronger with each life it takes." Her eyes met his across the fire. "Tradition says the Kreshka chooses its bearer as much as we choose to wield it." Adrian studied the blade, his expression thoughtful. "We have similar beliefs, objects imbued with meaning through blood and sacrifice. My people used to speak of swords passed down through generations, each death adding to their, I suppose you'd call it, spirit. Your traditions and ours aren't so different," Adrian said, studying the ceremonial blade between them. "Both built on blood and justified by abstract concepts, honor, duty, security. Our trials have purpose," Hanika countered. "They prepare us to protect our people. And our wars? We drape them in noble language too." His eyes met hers across the fire. "But what if we're both equally blind? What if there's more honor in questioning traditions than in blindly following them?" Hanika's gaze returned to the Kreshka. For the first time, she saw it not merely as a sacred implement, but as a physical manifestation of an idea. The sharp edge of beliefs passed down without question. "What if," she said softly, "the greatest strength is knowing when not to kill?" "Your daughter?" Hanika asked, sensing the wound beneath his words. Adrian's hands moved to the small metal rectangle he kept close. The image carrier. He opened it, revealing the young human female with his eyes and coloring. "Emma," he said simply. "She died while I was deployed, fighting someone else's war on someone else's planet." His fingers traced the image with gentle reverence. "Leukemia, a disease of the blood. Ironic, isn't it? I was shedding blood across the galaxy while hers betrayed her from within." The raw pain in his voice transcended species, language, worlds. Hanika felt it resonate within her, touching something she had long suppressed beneath layers of training and tradition. "The last thing I said to her was that I'd be home soon," Adrian continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "That when I returned, we'd go to the mountains like I promised. But wars have a way of extending beyond their projected end dates. By the time they granted me leave, she was already gone." "I am sorry," Hanika said, the human phrase awkward on her tongue but sincere. "When I volunteered for this mission, I wasn't looking for redemption or purpose. I was looking for silence, for space away from the sympathy in everyone's eyes. His gaze lifted to meet hers. Instead, I found you, hunting me for reasons that felt personal but weren't. Ready to take my life because tradition demanded it. And now, Hanika asked, suddenly needing to know how he saw her in this moment. Now I see someone questioning the blade they've been given, Adrian replied. Someone who might be realizing that tradition is a knife that cuts both ways. Hanika's eyes returned to the Kreshka lying between them. For the first time, she saw it not merely as a sacred implement, but as a physical manifestation of an idea. The sharp edge of beliefs passed down without question, cutting away alternatives, severing possibilities. Well, what if we are both wrong? She asked, the question emerging before she could censor it. What if both our kinds are equally blind? Adrian didn't answer immediately. When he did, his words were careful, measured. Then perhaps the greatest honor isn't in completing traditions, but in having the courage to examine them, and, when necessary, to forge new ones. Through the night, as Adrian slept, Hanika remained awake, her thoughts circling like predators around prey. The Kreshka gleamed in the moonlight that filtered through the canopy, its edge still sharp, still hungry. But for the first time in her life, Hanika wondered if some hungers should remain unfed. Dawn broke with the distant sound of horns, deep, resonant calls that echoed through the jungle. Hanika's body tensed immediately, recognition and dread flowering simultaneously in her chest. What is it? Adrian asked, already reaching for the makeshift spear he had crafted. The elders, Hanika said, rising to her feet, her movements fluid once more, now that the venom had cleared her system. A war party. They come to witness the 15th kill, or to deliver judgment if I have failed. Understanding dawned in Adrian's eyes. How long do we have? They are still distant. Perhaps half a day's journey? Hanika's mind raced through possibilities, each more impossible than the last. You must go. Travel west toward the setting suns. The jungle thins there, gives way to plains. Your people have settlements beyond. Adrian studied her face. And you? What happens to you if I escape? Hanika's expression hardened. Exile, dishonor, perhaps death. It does not matter. Go. But Adrian didn't move. Instead, he sat back down beside their small fire, his posture relaxed despite the tension crackling in the air. I'm not running, he said simply. Fury rose in Hanika's chest. You do not understand. The war party will not be merciful. They will kill you slowly, painfully, to restore the honor I have compromised. I understand perfectly, Adrian replied, his calm infuriating. But I'm not leaving you to face them alone. Not after everything. This is not your fight. Isn't it? Adrian's eyes met hers, steady and resolute. You spared me when you could have killed me. Multiple times. You taught me how to survive in this jungle. Your life is at risk because of me. Because of choices I made, Hanika countered. Choices that betrayed everything my people stand for. Adrian shook his head. No. Choices that revealed who you truly are beyond the rituals and traditions. There's more honor in those choices than in any kill. The horn sounded again, closer now. Time was running out. What do you propose? Hanika asked, a strange mixture of desperation and hope stirring in her chest. That we fight them together? That would mean your death and mine. No, Adrian said, rising to his feet with newfound strength. I propose we meet them on our terms. Together. The elders approached through a jungle that seemed to hold its breath. The usually restless canopy went still. The constant chorus of insects and avian creatures fell silent. Even the ground beneath their feet seemed to harden, no longer yielding softly to their steps, but offering unyielding resistance, as if Garrick itself contested their advance. Hanika felt it first, the subtle shift in the jungle's rhythm, the way the vegetation tensed around them. They're coming, she whispered to Adrian. The elders. How do you know? He asked, scanning the seemingly empty jungle. The jungle tells me, she replied simply. Listen. The silence itself had texture, weight. The air grew heavy with expectation. Then they appeared, emerging from between the trees like living shadows, their approach heralded by the synchronized footfalls of 24 warriors. Their skin was adorned with the ceremonial markings of a sacred hunt, their eyes cold and evaluating. But where they passed, the vegetation recoiled. Flowering vines curled away from outstretched hands. Bioluminescent fungi dimmed their glow. The Kirik trees that had sheltered Hanika and Adrian now straightened, their protective circle dissolving as if withdrawing their blessing. At the center of the procession walked Karvash, The High Elder, his ancient face a map of ritual scars and the wisdom they represented. As he stepped into the clearing, a massive throll orchid that had been in full bloom suddenly folded its petals, its vibrant colors fading to dull gray. The High Elder's eyes narrowed at this, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his otherwise impassive features. Then his gaze found Hanukkah, standing straight-backed and unapologetic beside the human. His expression hardened, but not before she caught that moment of doubt, the recognition that something unprecedented was occurring. Not just in her choice, but in the jungle's response to it. Hanika of the Verak, he intoned, his voice carrying the weight of generations. We come to witness the culmination of your trials, the 15th kill. His gaze shifted to Adrian. Yet we find your prey alive, standing as an equal at your side. Hanika stepped forward, her hand instinctively moving to the kreshka at her waist, the blade that had tasted blood 14 times, each kill bringing her closer to this moment. Its weight was familiar, a constant companion throughout her journey to become clan mother. The green edge seemed to pulse against her palm, eager for completion. High Elder, she acknowledged with a formal bow. Elders of the Council, you arrive at a critical moment. A ripple of anticipation moved through the assembled warriors. Karvash's ancient eyes narrowed. Explain. The human has proven himself a worthy adversary, Hanika said, her voice clear and caring. He survived when others would have perished. He adapted to our world with remarkable speed. And when I was struck by the venom of a Vaishrak, he could have left me to die. She paused, letting the significance of this sink in. Instead, he saved me. A complexity not accounted for in our traditions. Your point? Karvash asked, his tone dangerous. My point, Hanika continued, drawing the kreshka with deliberate slowness, is that I wished for you to witness this moment personally, to see the completion of a journey 14 kills in the making. A satisfied murmur rose from the gathered warriors. Karvash's rigid posture relaxed slightly, sensing the return to familiar ritual. Hanika turned to Adrian, who stood motionless, his expression unreadable. Their eyes met, and in that moment, a current of understanding passed between them, something deeper than words could express. Kneel, she commanded, slipping into the formal cadence of the ritual killing. To the surprise of the elders, Adrian complied without resistance, lowering himself to one knee before her. His eyes never left hers, no fear visible in their depths. The 15th kill requires witnesses of rank, Hanika continued, addressing the elders but keeping her gaze locked with Adrian's. It must be performed with perfect technique. The blade must sever the life pulse in a single stroke, allowing the spirit to depart cleanly. She raised the kreshka, its green edge catching the light of the setting second sun. The assembled Verak leaned forward in anticipation, their breathing synchronizing in the ancient rhythm that accompanied a sacred kill. With practiced precision, Hanika stepped behind Adrian, placing one hand on his shoulder to steady him. The ceremonial blade rose to his exposed throat, its edge hovering just above the pulse point where human life could be extinguished with a single clean cut. Time seemed to slow. The jungle itself went silent. In that suspended moment, Hanika felt the weight of generations of tradition pressing down upon her. The expectations of her people, the path that had been laid before her since birth, the honor that awaited with the completion of this final task. Yet stronger than tradition was the truth that had been growing within her since that first unexpected encounter. The realization that true honor might lie not in taking life, but in choosing to preserve it when killing would be easier. The kreshka trembled almost imperceptibly against Adrian's skin. Do it, Karvash urged, sensing her hesitation. Complete the ritual. Claim your place among the honored ancestors. Adrian's eyes closed, his body completely still beneath her hand. Not in surrender, but in trust. He had given her this choice, knowing full well what it might cost them both. I have tracked this human through the deadliest regions of our jungle, Hanika announced, her voice carrying to all assembled. I have witnessed his courage, his adaptability, his will to survive. I have seen him choose mercy when cruelty would have been simpler. The ceremonial blade remained at his throat. All the qualities we claim to value most highly in the Verak, I have found in this alien being. The ritual must be completed, Karvash insisted, a note of uncertainty entering his voice. Yes, Hanika agreed, locking eyes with the High Elder. It must. With a sudden, fluid motion, She withdrew the blade from Adrian's throat and stepped away from him. The assembled warriors gasped, some reaching for their own weapons in confusion. The 15th trial tests not just our ability to kill, Hanukkah declared, but our wisdom to know when we should not. Blasphemy, Karvosh snarled. Hanika, complete the ritual or we shall do it for you. No, Hanika said, her voice quiet but unyielding. You may kill him if you wish, but it will be murder, not honor. And you will do it knowing that your most decorated huntress chose a different path. Weakness, hissed one of the younger elders. Contamination from contact with the alien. She is compromised. She is enlightened, Adrian said suddenly, rising to his feet to stand beside Hanukkah. The assembled Verak stared in shock at his use of their language, however rudimentary. Your ways, your honor, she upholds them better than any. Silence, human, Karvosh commanded. This is not your place to speak. It is precisely his place, Hanika countered, surprising even herself with her defiance. He has earned the right to speak before the council. 14 times I have taken life with this blade. She raised the Kreshka, its surface still untainted by Adrian's blood. 14 times I have felt no hesitation, no doubt. Because I believe the wisdom passed down through generations, that leadership requires the willingness to take life. She turned the ceremonial dagger, examining its familiar curves, the 14 small etchings on its hilt that recorded her journey. I was taught that this blade is the embodiment of our traditions, the physical form of our highest values, that it drinks blood not out of cruelty but necessity, just as the jungle itself requires death to sustain life. Her eyes lifted to meet Karvosh's cold stare. But the jungle has taught me something else these past days. It has shown me balance, symbiosis. The human spoke truth when he asked, "What is honor if no one remembers your name? Only your kills." Then you are no longer of the Verak, Karvosh declared, raising his ceremonial staff. You are exiled, forgotten. Your name will be struck from the records. Your deeds erased from memory. No, said a voice from the back of the gathering. An elder female stepped forward, her skin bearing the marks of countless hunts. Not forgotten, changed. Karvosh turned, fury etched in every line of his ancient face. You challenge the council's authority, Shavena? I honor its wisdom, the female replied, her gaze steady. Hanika has completed 14 kills with honor. She has proven her strength, her cunning, her worthiness. That she chooses mercy for the 15th does not erase those achievements, it transforms them. A low murmur spread through the gathered warriors. Shavena was respected, her voice carried weight even against the High Elder. Karvosh's eyes narrowed. You suggest we alter the trials? Traditions that have sustained our people for 1,000 generations? I suggest we consider that perhaps the greatest test of a leader is not in how many lives they take, but in how many they spare when killing would be easier. Shavena's gaze shifted to Hanukkah. The human still lives, by her choice. Is that not a demonstration of ultimate control, of true power? The silence that followed was heavy with possibility and danger. Into that silence, Adrian stepped forward. Let her stay. I'll die if that's what it takes. Hanika's head snapped toward him, shock and protest rising within her. But before she could speak, he continued, his eyes never leaving hers. But I don't think that's what it takes. Not anymore. With deliberate movements, Hanukkah raised the Kreshka before the council. For 14 kills, it had moved with swift precision, claiming lives in silence. Now, she held it high so all could see the blade that had defined her path, the physical embodiment of tradition's sharp edge. This blade has drunk enough, she declared. If tradition demands blood, let it be the tradition that dies today. With absolute conviction, she drove the Kreshka into the soil between herself and the elders, the ceremonial dagger standing upright like a grave marker for an obsolete belief. The green blade caught the dying light, transforming from weapon to monument. As it penetrated the soil, the jungle responded. The ground rippled like disturbed water. Luminescent moss spiraled up the hilt, securing it in place. The blade pulsed once with inner light. I claim no kill today, she said simply. Let my name be forgotten. The moment the Kreshka penetrated the soil, the jungle responded with unmistakable intent. The ground around the blade rippled like water disturbed by a stone. Tiny tendrils of luminescent moss spiraled up from the earth, wrapping around the hilt of the dagger, securing it in place. The green blade pulsed once with an inner light that matched the rhythm of the moss's glow. A collective gasp rose from the assembled Verak warriors. Even Karvosh took an involuntary step backward. The jungle of Garrick, which had birthed their civilization and shaped their traditions across countless generations, had just visibly endorsed an act of sacrilege. Overhead, the canopy stirred, though no wind blew. The massive leaves shifted, allowing the light of the setting second sun to fall in a perfect circle around Hanukkah and Adrian. Elsewhere, shadow claimed the clearing, but they stood illuminated, bathed in crimson light that made the humans' blood-stained uniform and Hanukkah's scaled skin seem cast from the same substance. A hush fell over the jungle itself, as if every creature, every leaf held its breath in the face of this unprecedented moment. Karvosh stared at the planted dagger, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, meant only for those present. "You break a tradition older than memory itself." "I honor its spirit," Hanika countered. "The trials exist to prove who is worthy to lead, to protect. I have faced death, defied it, and now chosen what I believe serves our people best." The High Elder's ancient eyes studied her, probing for weakness, for doubt. He found none. "The council will deliberate," he said finally. "Until then, you remain neither exiled nor embraced, a shadow between states." With a gesture, he signaled the war party to withdraw. As they melted back into the jungle, Shavana lingered a moment longer, her eyes meeting Hanika's. "The oldest stories," she said softly, "speak of a time before the kills. Remember that." Then she too was gone. Hanika and Adrian stood alone in the clearing, the Kreshka still standing in the soil between them and the path the elders had taken. "What happens now?" Adrian asked, the tension of the confrontation still evident in his posture. Hanika looked to the blade, then to the deepening shadows of the jungle. "Now," she said, "we choose our own path." Hanika and Adrian did not wait for the council's final judgment. As the twin moons rose on the night of the confrontation, they gathered what supplies they could carry and prepared to depart. But as they reached the edge of the clearing, they faced an impenetrable wall of vegetation, massive thrall vines interwoven so tightly that not even Hanika's blade could have carved a path. "The jungle blocks us," Adrian observed, his hand touching the living barrier. Hanika stared at the tangled growth, confusion evident in her yellow eyes. Then understanding dawned. "Not blocking," she corrected, "directing." To their right, a narrow corridor had opened in the dense undergrowth, a path leading deeper into the uncharted wilderness, beyond the territories known to either species. As they watched, bioluminescent fungi illuminated the way, pulsing with a soft blue light that beckoned them forward. "The jungle chooses our path," Hanika murmured, awe replacing confusion. For days they followed the winding trail, allowing Garrick itself to guide them. The jungle parted before them, offering safe passage through regions that should have been impassable. Venomous plants folded their leaves away. Predators watched from a distance, but never approached. On the seventh day, they emerged into a vast clearing unlike any Hanika had seen before. At its center stood a massive structure, angular, metallic, half consumed by vegetation, not a creation of the Verak, nor any species native to Garak. "A ship," Adrian breathed, recognition and hope mingling in his voice. "An old research vessel from the First Contact War. I thought they were all destroyed or salvaged." He approached the structure reverently, running his hand along the moss-covered hull. "The core design is standard for that era. If the propulsion system is intact," his voice trailed off as he began to assess the damage with practiced eyes. "You can make it function?" Hanika asked, understanding dawning. Adrian nodded slowly. "With time, work, parts." He met her gaze, a question in his eyes. "But why would we? Where would we go?" Hanika looked back toward the jungle they had traversed, toward the territories of the Verak that had been her home for all her life. "I am no longer of the clans," she said simply, "and you cannot return to your people with the knowledge you now possess." Perhaps, she hesitated, the concept foreign yet strangely compelling. "Perhaps we forge a new path, together." Over the following weeks, they worked in tandem to resurrect the abandoned vessel. Adrian's technical knowledge allowed him to repair the engines, reconfigure life support systems, and restore power to critical functions. Hanika, with her intimate knowledge of Garrick's dangers and resources, ventured into the Forbidden Lands, the volcanic region where, according to Verac legend, the planet's blood bubbled to the surface in pools of highly combustible fluid. The tales speak truth, Farn, she told Adrian upon returning with containers of the iridescent liquid. The pools exist, and they burn with a fire hotter than the sun's. Perfect, Adrian replied, his face streaked with engine grease. The conversion system can process this. It's not ideal for long jumps, but it will get us beyond the local system. On the eve of their departure, Hanukkah stood at the edge of the clearing, watching Garrick's twin moons rise for what might be the final time. The Kreshka was heavy in her hand, the ceremonial dagger that had defined her past, the blade that had claimed 14 lives but spared the 15th. Adrian approached silently, standing beside her in the moonlight. Second thoughts? He asked softly. No, she replied, her voice certain. But farewells. With deliberate movements, she knelt and drove the Kreshka into the soil one final time. The green blade caught the moonlight, transforming it into a beacon that marked this moment of transition. No longer a huntress, she whispered. No longer of the Varak, but still myself. Adrian's hand found hers, warm against her scaled skin. Not the grip of a captor or the desperate clutch of prey, but the touch of an equal, a partner. Ready? He asked. She nodded, rising to her feet. Ready. The repaired ship rose shakily at first, vegetation tearing away from its hull as ancient engines protested their reawakening. Then gathering strength, it climbed toward the stars, leaving behind a world of blood-red jungles, ancient rituals, and the green dagger standing sentinel in the soil. On the dusty frontier world of Vectus, they built their new life. Their dwelling rose in an ancient impact crater, a structure neither human nor Varak, but something new. Windcatchers harnessed the constant winds for power. A perimeter of warning traps protected them from the planet's sparse predators. The boy was born during Vectus's long summer, when the binary stars burned the sky copper. His skin was deep crimson, like his mother's, his eyes golden with vertical pupils, yet holding the expressive depth of human eyes. They named him Theon, one who chooses his own path. One evening, Hanika found him reaching toward her old hunting knife displayed on the wall. Is this for killing? He asked. She considered carefully. Once it would have been. Now it's a reminder that I could have continued along that path, but chose not to. He studied her with surprising perception. Are you sad? About leaving your home? Hanika's gaze moved past him to where Adrian worked under Vectus's setting suns. Beyond him, their garden thriving despite the planet's hostility. No, she said, surprising herself with the truth. I am not sad. I am becoming. On Garak, the Kreshka remained where she had planted it, now overgrown with flowering vines. The clearing became a place of pilgrimage for young Varak, questioning rigid traditions. A simple stone marker appeared beside the blade. Honor lies not in blood, honor lies in choice. And on nights when Vectus's moons aligned like Garak's twin sentinels, Theon would find his mother watching the stars. Are you looking for your old world? He asked once. No, Hanika replied, drawing him close. I am looking forward, always forward. The jungle remembers, but so does the heart that learns to hunt no more.